So, welcome everyone to another new interesting episode of the Hempy Talks. I'm super excited. I'm very grateful for Gary for joining in from Margaret River and Hemco, which was the very first company, among the very first ones related to industrial hemp that I got to know from Australia, and I was truly fascinated by what you have been doing, Gary, and the whole team. So I'm super grateful for you being here on the Hempy Talks, and I can't wait to ask you all the questions I have for you.
Yep, no problem. It's glad to be here.
There is a lot you have achieved, and that's why I thought that the best title for this conversation would be that 29 years, because that's the fascinating part about it for new businesses starting out or those who have been around for a couple of years. And there is a lot that we can learn from you, and there is an intention here to use this opportunity a little bit as a learning experience. And the first question that I usually ask people is, and I would like to ask you as well, how did you enter the industrial hemp world? How did you get to know industrial hemp?
Um, Basically, there was quite a few years ago, 30 years ago, there was quite a few hemp shops around. And then over the years, one by one, they were all slowing down. And I think it was about 8 where we were in West Australia. So back quite a few years ago, there was a little shop here in our local little town here, which is one little shop, and they obviously went through all the rigmarole and the red tape to open a hemp shop. Once they had done that, but obviously they didn't have the capital to obviously, as a clothing store, if you sold one red shirt, a large, then you probably wouldn't get another large one shirt for another 6 months till the next order came in. So that business needed capital. My wife's mother and stepdad from England wanted to move out here, which they did. And then when they came here, they wanted their friends to come as well. So back then, to get into Australia, you could get in on the business visa. So back then, the hemp shop came up for sale, and my wife's parents bought in with their other business. They started a business. So in Australia, you could operate a business for 2 years, make it profitable, and then you get your residency. So they kind of did that, and then we were travelling around Australia at a stage, and we looked and went, oh, we would have loved to have bought into that. And when we got back, once they got their residency, we bought in to the Margaret Hemp Co. And then that's where the journey began, really, of retail. And then obviously GFC hit. And then, we obviously after a few more years, we bought out Georgie's parents, my wife's parents, and then we were running it ourselves. That then began a journey of realising that we overcapitalised and we lived in a hemp bubble. And we opened up another big store in Fremantle, and we totally overcapitalised. It was a big store, and customers weren't there. We just weren't ready. I think when you live in a hemp bubble, everybody nods like you're nodding your head now, because everybody just agrees this is it. So it's still like that today, 30 years later. And anyway, so GFC hit, and we've been locked in ever since then, really. And so we obviously had to look at different ways of how and hemp and learn about hemp. And our body care range was a little pet, a little experimental side of things, where now that probably outsells our clothing range, because that's huge. So we have 50 odd ranges now, different type of body care, men's, women's, even into the pet scene. So that then began its own way. Then with the GFC hitting, then we started our online shopping, because obviously people weren't going to shopping now, and then obviously internet came on board. So we've been around that long where the internet comes on board. We've started our online shopping, and people didn't really go shopping anymore. So we've gone through all these adjustments to just basically survive. Not so much overcapitalising, just always looking how do we diversify the business and how to keep moving forward. Then obviously the next point of call was building with hempcrete. Since 2017, you could grow industrial hemp here in Australia, in Western Australia. So we'd already done a hempcrete building course over here, and then like straight away I was hit up, can I build a hemp house? Sure. So we built the first hemp home here in Western Australia, and that really began the journey in opening your eyes of industrial hemp, because really we were just sort of importing shirts, clothing. Australia does not make clothes. Going back some years, we were making our own jeans, our shirts, our clothing, and we still have people coming to the shop today, nearly 26 years later, wearing them same clothes. Fast fashion's got to go, and we're such a believer in that. It's a shame we just don't manufacture clothes. Yeah. So that's just where that's reality. So we are moving on, probably going to jump a bit further here into moving into collaborations with India and China, and that's textile industry. And hopefully when we've just finished Australia's, with us, we supplied the hemp and Australian cotton. It's the first Australian hemp cotton grown blend. And yeah, that only happened last week. So it still keeps moving. It's a moving target, you know. So going back to where the hempcrete building side of things, so we started Hemp Homes Australia. So we built quite a few houses out of that. Then COVID hit, and Australia did not have a processing facility, and I'm Hemp Homes Australia, building hemp homes with no hemp. So we went to England to basically bring that in for importing, and then England got COVID first. So that was it. We got no hemp in Australia. So that was it. Pulled the trigger on building a processing facility, and that's where we're at today. And I was about 10 minutes ago still processing hemp. And just that's now began a whole different journey. And that's where we are at the industry at the moment, because you're going to hear the word closing the loop a lot more, and the green circular economy instead of the word sustainability, because everyone has to be ESG registered and all that before Christmas. So you're seeing a lot of companies are starting to go away and play in this sector of maybe blending hemp in what they've already got, or adding hemp into something to close the loop, basically, or have that carbon offset. So certainly it's been a journey and still is. Every day is a different day. And, you know, so on as the business goes, my wife, she operates the body care, the clothing, the stores, all of that side of it. And I operate the building, the processing. And then, unfortunately, when we built the processing facility, my business partner, David Campbell, great man, great farmer, passed away last year. So we got a bit of a legacy to make this succeed. So we're at the starting blocks. And without David, I don't think the whole West Australian hemp industry would have succeeded, because he was a great broadacre farmer. And that's where the industry I can see it now, starting to head into these big orders from overseas, because Australia really, our main is the herd, which is basically the inner core of the plant, if your listeners don't know the difference. So basically when you're processing, you've got three things you're really going for. One is your herd, or bast fibre, or shiv, this is where people get confused with that language. In Australia we call it herd, Europe call it shiv. Then we're trying to get the fibre off, which is your bast fibre. That's our separation. So where is that market? We still did not know until we've done a shipment to India, and we've done a shipment to China, and two companies in China at the moment. So one was for the car industry, but it's certainly learning about your retting process. Retting is called a rotting process, or that's the breakdown of the lignans and pectines with all the different types of dew retting. So that's a lot to learn on that side of things in industrial hemp. There's a lot to learn that we've got to do to get to that spec, and that's why I'm pretty excited to be able to, hopefully in collaboration, we're going to China in 2 weeks and actually meet with these people and meet with the farmers, meet with the processors, meet with that. So we can bring that back to Australia and actually have a global, way to process, because at the moment there are so many different processing machines and there's so many different cultivars. You are never, ever going to get the same product. It's not going to happen. So if we all get the same sort of machinery and work in collaboration, because we, at the end of the day, these orders that we're hearing from overseas, this is on a big, big scale, and it's about working with a one world, commodity, and that's the way it's got to go. If we're going to get hemp happening around it globally, then we have to come together, and that's with Australia, with making fibre, maybe our export market. And I'm all in for working with people and joining as one, and to get this happening. And because there's other people been doing this for 50 years. Startup, after 3, 4, 5 years, still learning. So it's a journey. And I think we're just coming around to this part now, seeing other clients or other people like going into nanoparticles, blending into oil spills. There are people into weed matting and clothing, and it's the automotive, and here we go, into the railways, into the transportation, into concrete, and it's really starting to go down that path. So I don't know where it's going to end up. I think the demand will totally outweigh supply. That's where it's going to be. It's going from a cottage industry from fully fledged industrial. And at the moment, we're not in between, because you have to give the confidence for the farmers to put that in. And without the end product, that's where we're at in the industry. No marketing. There's been no marketing for our products. I believe with the academia circles that we've been going in the last couple of years, we seem to be doing more research, more trials, more cultivar, more research, more trials, more cultivar. When really we should be going, this person wants to do this in hemp and they're willing to do this for the next 20 years. Do you think you can do that? And I will say, of course I can. Then we have the right machinery. And then I can go to the farmer and say, listen, they want 500 tonne per month of that grade fibre. Then I can say to the farmer that we need to go 50 hectares, and the farmer will then put it in. At the moment, what we've done, we've actually paid all the farmers, we've paid for all the bales, we've paid for everything, and hopefully that build it, they will come strategy. It's not a good building motto to have. It really is not. But how else do we do this when you haven't got an industry and people go, I want to have a go at that, and you haven't processed it? What I found in the whole scheme of these wonderful things, you hear 20,000 uses you can use of hemp, or 50,000 uses of hemp. You can do this with hemp. No, you can't. You need a processing facility. And with that processing facility, then you can go off and choose one of them 20,000 things, because you need these contracts, because building a processing facility is quite expensive. And it's really difficult to process. It's the strongest fibre in the world. So you imagine it's like a banana, trying to get that skin off, and it's the strongest skin in the world without tearing your machinery apart. And that's something that we've successfully done. But then once you do that, you go, well, who's going to buy it? And that's kind of where we're at the moment. Like, who is going to buy our fibre? It's nobody in Australia, because we haven't got a textile industry in Australia. So we have to go abroad and then start to look at overseas and working with other people and working with other companies that do clothing, and then bring that back to Australia. Yeah. So that's a little bit of where we're at the moment. Probably change again tomorrow, but that's as from today. That's our little angle of what we're going down.
Thank you. That was a lot of information, and very useful information as well, because just right now we are in the process. Last 4 months we started bringing back to Hungary kind of awareness around industrial hemp and uniting it so that loop can be closed. And Hungary was using the retting process, so still the facilities are there, machinery very old, but it's still there, and the knowledge as well, but it requires significant investment. And also Ukraine, where we have our own farm where we are growing hemp, it was not it was more about the decortication and using the decortication machines. So back in the 70s and 80s, the Chinese bought up all the equipment and went back to China, developed their machinery. So now it's, they are offering it as a learning, and of course they developed it and full on. Whereas in Ukraine now it's just the remaining of what was once a very flourishing like industry, especially in the eastern Ukraine because of the war. Now it's being either sold or dismantled. But still there is like some remainings that can be built on. However, many of the challenges that you mentioned, I can closely relate to, because this is something that we are working on, and this is something that is not an easy thing to set up an industry from scratch, And Australia and Hungary, maybe there are some differences, but also there are many commonalities when building up the industry, and those are the same parallel routes I see in almost every conversation where we talk about farming and processing and then making products, and how to do it in a way which is cost effective, but also, we don't have to ship to a million countries and increase the cost. So there is a lot that we can also bring to the table and share experiences. So maybe round tables are calling, that we can learn from each other. But for now, it was a very interesting conversation, and I will have to end it here just because there is a lot more to be shared. But I think that was the most interesting part, is how what your story was for me. Is it was this story of resilience and managing change, because you mentioned loads of examples of things happened and then you adjusted and then you found a way. And that's something that is very, I think, inspirational to other hemp businesses starting out. And also thank you for being so honest about the challenges, because these are the challenges like all of us facing. And when I say all of us, all those countries that are trying to set it up as a working industry and make it work and long term, not just a few years, and not based on just depending on some external factors or sources. So I really appreciate that part as well. And of course I would like to wish like lots of growth and lots of new things and new solutions coming up for Margaret River Hemp Co. and Western Australian hemp. And for now I would just like to say thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of the conversation.
Not a problem. It's the same sentiments as you were saying. Worldwide, it's the same story. Like